It's so wonderful to be here. Summits like this are so important for us to meet each other and compare trends from around the world and see if you are seeing what others are seeing. So you tell me, can you see or sense that we are all drowning in content? It certainly is that way in the United States, where we have over 5 million brands putting out content every day. And of course, that's just the tip of the iceberg, as they say. There are 88% of business-to-business companies putting out content, 76% of business-to-consumer brands putting out content, and every one of them, when surveyed, says they are going to put out more content next year than they are now. Then there are the 50,000 Internet of Things, things connected all over the world, giving out content of a sorts. For example, I can tell you right now what is in my refrigerator 3,000 miles away. On here I have an app that will tell me the temperature in my home, and I could call up for you if I wanted my English Springer Spaniel sitting by the glass front door watching for me to come home. The Internet of Things, putting out content. But that is just the least of the content we all face. There are 2.3 billion individuals with little media channels that they carry around, you and me among them. 2.3 billion content creators putting out content 5, 10, 15, 20 times a day, receiving content from each other, amplifying it. No wonder the CMO of Progressive Insurance says, marketers' content is not just competing with top competitors or even other brands outside of a category. We're competing with people's friends, mothers, and self-made celebrities on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and it is just getting started. So no wonder a rigorous study by my company a couple of years ago said that we really are facing a crisis of content marketing. There are many contributing factors, not the least of which is this exponential growth in content daily. It's not just that we have LinkedIn and Pinterest and Facebook, all kinds of devices and channels putting out content that didn't exist before. We have, of course, regular and traditional content channels, newspapers and broadcasters putting out more content. And then we have folks like Netflix and Amazon spending billions on original content every year and feeding it to us. And of course, brands, the brands we work on, as well as all of our companies as brands, are putting out more content. An estimated 35% more content per channel per year. Per channel per year. Yet, the research shows that despite that, it's 17% less engagement per channel per year. And this suggests the second contributing content to the crisis we all face. There's no more time in the day to absorb any more content. When you think of all the things that you currently spend your time on, the content you spend time on, do you have any more time in the day to spend on more content? You have to sort of give up content you're already using or habituated to handle more content, or multitask even more, or, as Reed Hastings, the head of Netflix, says, you have to essentially trade sleep to use more content, because there's no more time in the day for more content. It's no wonder then that this buzz for more content that's created, we see all around us, has generated an appetite for more content. A lot of folks think they can be opportunistic and take advantage of this buzz, this need for more content, as Netflix and others are doing. But again, there's not enough time for us to access it, yet a lot of folks are sort of taking advantage of this anyway. I call it content marketing malpractice. Folks getting in the business of suggesting we all need to do more content because they can make a buck off of getting us to do more content. They are offering webinars or consulting practices or content templates. And here's one of my favorites that's just an example of this kind of malpractice that's going on out there. Quote, as our own content guru likes to say, with our 11-session online course, you'll be the contentiest of all content marketers in your company. You'll discover how to generate a wealth of ideas so you can continue doing what you're doing, all for just $595. So no wonder there's more and more content with folks like this promoting us to put out more content. This is the kind of content we face every minute of every day. And perhaps you saw the Havas study, as I just did a couple of weeks ago, meaningful brand study. Despite all of this content, consumers get it. They say that 60% of the content produced by brands is seen as clutter and irrelevant. And this, in a way, just clutter and irrelevancy is good, because a fourth factor causing the crisis is the boring, fake, threatening, harassing, violent, depressing, and dangerous content. We have all been trained to avoid phishing emails that are looking for us to give up some of our financial information, or to fall prey to an email where they download malware on our computers. And another canary in the coal mine is, along with being trained to be wary of content, the research shows that people are, in fact, disconnecting from a lot of the content out there. All kinds of studies and famous anecdotes. Mark Andreessen, the very well-known venture capitalist of the United States, famously tweeted 30, 40 times a day, and he's had to swear it off because he said it was taking over his life. And all kinds of studies from the Pew Research Center or others report that 50% of millennials say that they are giving up some content because they feel it was affecting their mental health. Reports of family members across the nation feeling that social media is making their children narcissistic. A focus on this post or that about having the best vacation, the best dress. Instagram posts, my party is the best, my food preparation is the best. It is creating a mental illness in people's lives that they are noticing right now, and thus they are sensing it and starting to disconnect. And of course, there then is the fact that we're all now sensitized to the data gathered about us. Even though Facebook last week announced they're going to stop tracking us around the web, in many ways they have in the past, this is just going to make our jobs harder, because of course our job is to engage people with content, to find out what content attracts and optimize it. And if it gets harder because of some of Facebook policies or the great work that here is being done in Europe about privacy rules and regulations, it's just going to make it harder and harder to engage people, which of course is another factor affecting the crisis of content marketing. Of course, there's always new technology and new science that can improve marketing. If we want to engage people with our content now, of course, we can alert folks and send pings to the phone. Of course, when everyone starts doing that, people will be all the more turned off. And of course, with behavioral targeting and precision marketing, we will receive more relevant content, but once something works, everyone piles on, and then we'll all get more and more content, which of course means it will still be harder and harder to engage. So as Mark Pritchard says, popular strategies to increase engagement will probably only make the matter worse. And of course, this is a problem because we have to prove engagement. We have to prove the business impact of our content marketing. CMOs demand it. They are under more and more pressure to show the business impact. And again, back to the Havas meaningful brand study. The data demonstrates an alarming ineffectiveness. The findings are clear. Brands must rapidly become better at seizing the opportunities that good content can offer, or they and we, the advertising community that supports them, will struggle to survive. So many causes of the crisis at hand, and of course the study's #1 conclusion was that the crisis is very real for us all. But I think you'll appreciate the second two conclusions of our study. And the first, you'll certainly recognize, and it will make you laugh, that content is not going to go away. We are going to continue to seek content, promotional content, informational content, news and entertainment, and of course, we'll also put out our own content because, ladies and gentlemen, if your child is being eaten by a camel, do you save your child or do you take a photo and post it on Facebook? I ask you. Yes. Well, the third conclusion of our study is that there really is something that can save us all from the crisis facing content marketers. And they are some best practices that we found to save us all and mitigate the crisis. The first sounds very simple and sort of like a no-brainer, as we like to say in the United States, but the truth of the matter, it's not used very much. And that is first aligning on the same definition of content marketing. In our study, we found so many definitions of content marketing and such broad definitions as to make the phrase content marketing meaningless. And when you have a definition that is so broad and meaningless, it's very hard to put best practices against it. So we have to have an agreement on what a definition of content marketing is, and I'm suggesting it's the strategic development and distribution of material outside of advertising, created for the purpose of entertaining, inspiring, or educating a target. But we don't have to just align on the definition, we have to align on the outcomes it is to achieve. And that is the other part of our first recommendation. Content marketing must drive measurable brand engagement affecting key business metrics. CMOs are under increased pressure. We as agencies are under increased pressure to show business impact. One of the largest content platforms in the world is Contently, and their editor points out, the future of content marketing is content so accountable that every action maps to high-level company objectives, strategies that ensure you're producing the right content for the right audience, real business goals, not just vanity metrics. In other words, you start your brief not with the outputs, but with the outcomes, the business outcomes, not the communication outcomes, the business outcomes, the content is to drive. And of course, the value of this is that when you are able to show the value of content marketing, a staggering 92% of marketers want to invest in it again. And isn't that what we all want? This, by the way, is just out from the WARC 2017 Content Marketing Report by Peter Field. So if you've not had a look at it, please do. It's just terrific. The second thing that's working, and of course there are many, and I'm only going to talk about 4 today. The second thing that's working is really understanding what really drives content's appeal. A lot of us think we put out content because people want relevant content. It's actually not the content at all that people are after. They are after something that helps them see in the content or the brand who they are or aspire to be. Who they are or aspire to be. This is the most compelling human motivation, to fulfill our self-concept, to feel like we are becoming who we aspire to be. It is the most important value proposition you can use to position a brand, or the most inspiring platform you can have for content. How do they see in your content a way to be who they are or aspire to be? It's also what makes content the most shareable. Some recent research shows that women really aspire to be seen as more intelligent, and so they share content that they feel makes them be seen as more intelligent. Men, in contrast, want to be more likable, seen as more funny, so they tend to share content that they believe makes them seem more funny. But underlying all of this is this huge motivation to fulfill our aspirations. It's in our DNA. We are hardwired. It's sort of survival of the fittest to be more of who we are, aspire to be. And psychologists now say we're subconsciously motivated to seek out conversations for, out of a belief we feel they can help us achieve that self-concept. In other words, we come to conversations in the belief that they can help us be more of who we are, aspire to be. We can get something out of them. It's what drives our conversations. So I would posit that it's actually not content people are seeking, but conversations that help them be more of who they are or aspire to be. Think about it, 200 of us here, and there isn't a one of us not looking for conversations to help us be more of who we are or aspire to be. If someone comes up to us and we don't feel they have anything like that to offer, that content is irrelevant. We're going to spend time with this content and conversation where we feel there's something to help us be more of who we are or aspire to be. So conversations, relevant conversations that help us lift ourselves up to that are really what can drive content. When you see content that does that, that appeals to people, it drives conversations. You see in this particular campaign over 1 billion Twitter impressions in the first 12 hours and amazing business outcomes as a result. Conversations. Today, if a brand isn't part of the conversation, it doesn't exist. In fact, today, a brand is the sum of all conversations about it, and there's no greater case history than Dove, with all of the conversations that are on point and targeted to what? How women can see in the advice of Dove and others who they are or aspire to be, appreciated for the beauty within as opposed to the beauty without. So if a brand is a sum of conversations, the question is, what is your agency's signature conversation? Or for the brands you work on, what is the signature conversation of the brand you are marketing? And then what question could fuel that signature conversation? What is real beauty is a signature conversation and fuel for Dove. What is it for the brands you work on or for your agency? The brain is hardwired to be paused by questions. They literally hijack whatever else the brain is thinking about to consider an answer. No wonder questions improve engagement, and thus our third recommendation, use questions to trigger engagement with content. The research shows that a blog post ending in a question will get 162% more interactions than one that does not end in a question, that tweets that end in a question will get 50% more engagement. And when you look at some of the best marketers in the world trying to engage us, you see folks like Amazon engaging us with emails about Alexa to ask Alexa questions. First of all, the email comes in with the headline, "What's Alexa up to now?" So that's a question. And then in the email they say, "Ask Alexa this, ask Alexa that." And day after day these come in, and those of us with Alexa in our living room or our dining room are habituated via questions to bring Alexa into our life about the weather, about sports, about news, etc. Very smart marketing. And you can read the stories as I have, great stories in Fast Company and Scientific American and the Harvard Business Review. Research has proven the power of questions. They trigger curiosity, the process of asking them and answering unlocks learning. They influence attitudes and behaviors. They spur exchanges with each other, which increases rapport and likability. They are shown to elevate activity in the areas of the brain that create and store memories and stimulate areas of the brain of reward and pleasure. When areas of our brain feel reward and pleasure, we want more of it, so much so that we are willing to pay for more of that reward and pleasure. Which brings me to the fourth best practice. We've all grown up and done our professional work believing that we are selling products and services. I would posit that the new best practice for us in a world of content marketing is to treat content as the product we're creating, launching, and scaling to sell for a profit. Treat content as what we are selling because we will create it differently. We will launch it more concertedly as opposed to just putting it out. And we'll keep launching it and keep working at that launch to greater success if we believe we have to prove the profitability of it, generating a profit. No less than Mondelez, the marketers of Oreos and Trident and others, said at Cannes 2 years ago that by 2020, they intend to make profit from creating content people will pay to watch. And every week now you can see in the Wall Street Journal articles of small companies, like a newsletter author, or large organizations like CNN launching content for which they expect monetization. And when you think about the power of conversations and content and affecting those parts of the brain with reward and pleasure, think about this. You could put out content about Macallan Scotch in many forms, a story, a little film, or a virtual reality film. But if you brought that to a dining room, a restaurant, say in Chicago, and had a little peat moss there to touch or sniff while you're tasting the scotch, you might charge $95 for what could have been just content marketing, but combined with the conversation and the experience was worth a lot more. So, even if you never have to sell your content, I would argue that we should all adapt this premise of creating content as the product we're creating, launching, scaling to sell for a profit, for very important reasons today. It focuses and aligns everyone on a business objective of the content. So of necessity, our work will be to create more relevant content. We'll more seriously launch and market it, scaling it, improving engagement. We'll at least generate some revenue to offset the expense of content marketing, because that is expensive. And you'll open yourself to perhaps bigger revenue opportunities. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the cosmetic brand Glossier. A few, the women, of course. Glossier started as a blog. The blog got a lot of attention. People said, where can I get the kind of stuff you're talking about in the blog? So they realized they could start sourcing and creating some of these things and turn the blog into actually a website, a shopping site for branded product, generating revenue. And of course, they have learned, the very successful brand, they have learned, and the president says this, we won't grow revenues unless we're conversational. So they regularly work questions into the engagement. So again, the values of monetization, you might even find new revenue streams. And of course, you can gain direct access to the content user. You don't have to go through other parties, other channels to get to your user. And with that, you get first-person data from those using your content, which is today's asset, today's gold, today's currency, direct user data. This increases your odds of success when facing bigger competitors like Amazon and others who have all kinds of user data. And of course, with more data, you can fuel more and better business outcomes. So the approach to thinking about content as what you're selling is very important because it will lead you to these things. And of course, this is something you can easily do. We can all do. Any agency can do, because positioning and proof and branding and launching and scaling, these are the skill sets we use all the time. And of course, science and AI will help us today as well. The BBC is using eye tracking software to optimize engagement. Data and predictive modeling is helping us all optimize engagement. So of course, science and AI will help as well. Now, the last point I'll make about our research study is a point that was unresolved. We realized we couldn't quite predict when and how the crisis facing all of us content marketers will end. We've had a few inklings, however, maybe some of you saw them too, in the recent IAB study that came out in January, I believe, on the rise of consumer-to-direct brands. Increasingly, the world is going consumer-direct, and 2/3 of consumers, of course, expect to have a direct relationship with a brand. This is part of the research finding as well. And we too have to appreciate that we are increasingly going to, on behalf of our clients, market direct to consumers. And I mean that in the most literal sense. And that is, all brands and all agencies must ace what it takes to market direct to consumers, and I would argue to the mind, direct to the mind of consumers, because direct to mind is what is apparently coming. We've all heard of Elon Musk. Some say he is a visionary, some say he's nuts, but you have to argue that all the things he said he will do have come to fruition. Launching Tesla successfully, launching SpaceX very successfully. Well, last summer he launched Neuralink, which is a direct cortical interface to upload and download thoughts directly to the brain. He says it will be viable by 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, that's 3 years away. And that would sound nuts if we didn't know that Google and Facebook have been working on the same thing for several years. On top of that, if you know a Parkinson's sufferer, and there are 100,000 of them in the world, they have chips that have chips implanted into their brain, monitoring their tremors and minimizing them. So already, direct cortical interface, in fact, happens. But if you look at the Wall Street Journal study of last fall, you will see that perhaps the longest researcher in this, and the one closest to having, quote, a fully programmable human brain, is the United States Department of Defense. And they say it will be happening soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, the future of content marketing for all of us may look something like this.
I know Kung Fu.
Show me.
Direct to the brain, marketing of content. Stay tuned.